At 11:45 a.m., he took his last breath. 5 minutes later, she placed a wedding ring on his finger, and legally, she became his wife, which meant something extraordinary. She had just inherited $100 million, not through years of marriage, not through love, through 5 minutes and a loophole that most people don't even know exists. My name is Walter Sheldon. I don't tell ghost stories. I don't tell urban legends. I study the strange things people leave behind when they die. Hidden fortunes, forgotten wills, and the uncomfortable truth about what money can do to human decisions. Some of these stories are tragic, some are disturbing, and some of them sit in a legal gray zone where the law, morality, and greed collide. This is one of those stories. The man who died that morning was Edward Halbrook, 73 years old, a reclusive real estate magnate who spent 40 years quietly buying land across the American West. People who met him described him the same way: quiet, calculating, almost invisible. But when he died, the number attached to his estate was impossible to ignore. Just over $100 million, properties, investment funds, and several trust accounts no one fully understood. Naturally, his family assumed the fortune would stay in the bloodline, but they were wrong. Her name was Lena Ward, 32 years old, not famous, not wealthy, not part of Edward Halbrook's world. She worked as a private nurse, the kind hired by very rich families when illness becomes too complicated for ordinary care. For 8 months, Lena had been assigned to Edward Halbrook's house, feeding him, monitoring medication, watching his health slowly collapse. To everyone outside the room, she was just another employee, but something strange was happening behind closed doors. 3 days before Edward Halbrook died, he made an unusual request. He asked his attorney to visit the house, not to update his will, not to transfer assets, to ask a legal question, a very specific one. Can someone marry after death? It sounds absurd, but in rare circumstances, certain legal systems recognize something called a posthumous marriage, a ceremony performed after death, if there is proof the couple intended to marry beforehand. Most lawyers never see it once in their entire career. Edward Halbrook was about to attempt it. On the morning of his death, the room was quiet, machines humming, curtains half drawn, Lena Ward sitting beside the bed. When Edward Halbrook finally stopped breathing, the nurse called the physician. Time of death, 11:45 a.m. What happened next is what turned the story into a legal nightmare, because instead of leaving the room, Lena made another phone call to the attorney. By 11:50 a.m., the lawyer had arrived with documents already prepared. Witnesses later testified that Lena Ward placed a ring onto Edward Halbrook's finger. The attorney recorded a statement, documents were signed, affidavits were prepared, and according to the paperwork, Edward Halbrook and Lena Ward had intended to marry before his death. The ceremony was brief, quiet, and legally recognized, which meant something extraordinary. Lena Ward was no longer his nurse, she was his widow. Within hours, the family discovered what had happened, and they were furious, because Edward Halbrook's will contained a clause that now mattered more than anything else. My entire estate shall pass to my lawful spouse. For decades, that sentence meant nothing. Now it meant $100 million, all of it redirected to a woman who had entered his life less than a year earlier. The nephews filed lawsuits immediately. Accusations began flying: manipulation, coercion, fraud. But the law had a problem. the documents were technically valid. Investigators tried to understand the relationship between Edward Halbrook and Lena Ward. Was it love? Was it manipulation? Or something much colder? Some believed Halbrook genuinely trusted her more than his own family. Others believed Lena had spent months carefully positioning herself inside the life of a dying billionaire. But the truth is this: no one inside that room at 11:50 a.m. can fully explain what really happened. Only two people knew the real intention behind that ring, and one of them was already buried. In the end, the courts never proved criminal wrongdoing. The lawsuits dragged on. Arguments filled courtrooms, but the legal marriage, strange as it was, remained standing, which meant Lena Ward walked away with a fortune most people will never see in 10 lifetimes, all because of a ceremony that lasted less than a minute, 5 minutes after a man died. Some fortunes are earned, some are inherited, and sometimes they appear in the strange space between death and the law. If you're fascinated by the secrets people leave behind in their final documents, subscribe. My name is Walter Sheldon, and on this channel, we open the files most people were never supposed to read. Welcome to the Lost Will Files. The next story might be even stranger.